This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It is my pleasure to welcome Jon Ostenson to the show. He is with Franbridge Consulting, and a lot has changed in the economy, in the COVID world. Everything's looking different nowadays. As we all know, people are working remotely. They are changing their geography and just changing their priorities with life and business and careers and so forth. And we're going to be talking about just that broader economy, but also sort of some unique franchising ideas and things that I think will be of interest to you. Jon, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me. Excited about talking about franchising today.
Yeah, good stuff. So what has changed in the last 18 months or so? I mean, we've got the Great Resignation going on. People are reevaluating their life, their priorities, their geography, just so many things. Tell us your take on that from your desk.
Yeah, no, I get to have conversations all day, every day with those around the country coming from different backgrounds and different places in which many of them are questioning the path they're on. I think you mentioned the Great Resignation, whether it's jumping to another job or maybe it's scratching that entrepreneurial itch that they've always had. There's a lot of interest in business ownership, and I get the privilege of educating them on another path to achieve that dream. That's through what I call non-food franchising. And there's just a whole world of opportunities that oftentimes people don't have on their radars that can be a really good fit. It's not right for everyone, but can be a good fit for many of them. And, I think COVID has spurred even more of an interest, just that desire for a sense of control and the perception of flexibility, in some cases work remotely, like you said. People are saying, maybe now's the time that I build my own empire instead of someone else's.
Mm-hmm. So why are you in the category of non-food? Why is that a specialty? Why is that so different? I mean, you're very specific about non-food. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. As many of your guests in the past have said, it's all about the niches. It's finding that sweet spot. And so for me, my background was largely in the corporate world for many years, like many of your listeners. But when I stepped into lead the Shelf Genie franchise system, which was custom pull-out shelving for kitchens and pantries, working with all those franchise owners, it turned on a light bulb for me that, hey, there are a lot of ways to make money, and a lot of them, within franchising are outside of food. And yet when I say franchise, you think fast food. And so I have branded as non-food franchising. And, we work in sectors from health and wellness to property services to, those businesses that deal with the seniors and the elderly population to automotive. It's really this wide array of B2C and B2B businesses. And over 80% of my clients end up getting placed into something and selecting an industry they never had on their radar. So it's a lot of fun for me, educating and then playing matchmaker for all these would-be entrepreneurs.
So talk to us again more broadly about the situation now and, what people are seeing and what they're doing. The world it's just so much different than it was a couple of years ago.
It absolutely is. And in addition to people questioning their own career path, it's also this macro dynamic of there's more cash than ever on the sidelines. Stock market's at a record high. Interest rates are really low. Only so many good real estate deals to be had. And so a lot of investors are also looking into alternative spaces. Obviously, crypto and baseball cards and other little niches can be of interest. However, a lot of them are saying, hey, there's still some tax benefits to be had through business ownership. So I see a lot of questioning out there across the entire economy on a lot of different levels, and that leads different people to, down different paths. But there is a lot of intellectual interest on the sidelines right now.
So where's all the money coming from?
Yeah, it's a combination. So I think that some are hesitant to reinvest in the stock market. Some are tapping into their retirement. programs. A lot of our clients use SBA loans. Believe it or not, the federal government still has some small business friendly programs such as SBA lending. So with the low interest rate environment that we're in, you also see people tapping into their home equity. So it could be for HELOCs or refinancing.
Yeah. When the powers that be print a bunch of fake money out of thin air and the Fed becomes the biggest investor in the world, buying up all sorts of mortgage-backed securities and so forth, the money is just flowing. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why we're starting to see I believe, the first signs of some pretty severe inflation that is coming down the pike. So talk to us a little bit about the SBA. You seem to indicate by your comment that the SBA wasn't too friendly to financing small businesses. You said, believe it or not, there's some programs out there. I thought the SBA was offering some pretty good stuff from some of my friends in this arena, how they talk about it.
The SBA certainly has, and they've been fairly consistent in that. And they have special programs for veterans and others, depending on the type of loan, whether it be a 7A or an express loan and such. What I was implying with that is that, there are a lot of policies coming out of Washington today that are not business friendly and, can have an impact on small businesses. However, there are programs like the SBA that still continue to support us.
Yeah, and that's certainly true. I agree. So, a lot of our listeners really like the idea, the strategy that I've been teaching for many years. I call it inflation-induced debt destruction, and getting this extremely low rate, long-term fixed rate debt against properties can be a huge opportunity. But you can also do it with business, and that debt can become what's known as self-liquidating debt, right? So there's some pretty good opportunities here. Can you tell us about some of those SBA programs and some businesses that you might attach this debt opportunity to?
Yeah, absolutely. Many of my clients use what's called the SBA Express program. And even if they have the cash in hand, they still like the idea of being able to leverage up that business, especially out of the gate, where you can pay it back over time if need be. But the Express loan is usually $150,000 and below. And then you've got your traditional 7A loans, which could be a little bit larger. And so there's pros and cons behind each of these paths. But I have a client today, a former Wall Street attorney outside of Boston, that's signing a deal with a gutter business. Well, his net worth is a couple million, and he could finance the business himself or fund it himself. Instead, he's choosing to use both an SBA as well as what we call a ROBS program. The ROBS program allows you to take a portion of your retirement savings, establish yourself as a C Corp that is then owned by your retirement plan, and you're able to get around the tax implications that would an early withdrawal would typically have. So, there are a lot of creative strategies like that. I personally like the idea of a portfolio loan or tapping into a line of credit against your equity brokerage account. Going down that path, rates are as low as 1% today. That's what I currently have through Schwab.
That's incredible.
Free money.
Back to the C Corp and the SBA. So the C Corporation, as opposed to the S Corporation, is rarely used by small business people. It's usually by big publicly traded companies all the time because it has double taxation, and it's taxed inside the corporation and then again when you take income out of the corporation. But you're saying that the C Corp can be owned by someone's self-directed IRA?
That's correct. And as a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization, similar to you, I'd say 90% of the companies in there are S Corps. That's definitely the path to go, unless you're doing something special like this, especially when you're a single member owner, let's say. But no, the C Corp can be owned by your retirement plan.
Now, is the reason you do that the retirement plan has an arm's length rule, and you couldn't just have the business in there where you're just running the business, because that would violate the arm's length rule? But the C Corp, does it get around that?
Yeah, I do play an attorney on TV, but not off of TV. So
Good answer.
I'll be careful here, but it is along those lines, the logic behind it. And there are hurdles you have to jump through every month, and you do have to have an outside third party helping to facilitate and manage. Good examples, Fran Fund and Benetrends are vendors that we use a lot, good partners of ours to help us with our clients that really specialize in that. So you can't go at it alone. You do have to have a partner that helps you from a fiduciary standpoint.
Okay. All right. But back to the SBA loan terms. So you can borrow through SBA, or was that home equity you were talking about at 1%? Tell us about the terms of a typical SBA deal, if you would.
Yeah, no,
the length, the rate, everything.
Yeah, no, that'd be home equity. You can get a HELOC oftentimes as low as 2 or 3% right now. And granted, that could go up over time. Against my portfolio loan personally, I've got a 1% loan there. Again, I don't need the money, but it's an arbitrage opportunity, for me. SBA is still higher than that. It's not going to be your mortgage rates. You're typically looking at somewhere between 5 and 7%, which from a historical business lending standpoint is very low, but it's not going to be as low as
it's very cheap, but it's not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac type stuff.
Exactly.
So on that 5 to 7% SBA loan, what's the term of that loan and how does it work?
Yeah, typically 15 to 20 years. In some cases, you could go a little bit longer, but I always let my clients know that you can pay it back early. Once you get that business cash flowing, you start to pay down that SBA loan without any penalties in most cases.
Well, I wouldn't even recommend paying that back early at those rates because the real rate of inflation is higher than those. So you're getting paid to borrow, and that's just a fixed rate loan?
Correct.
Okay. And do you need to have real estate as part of the business, or can it just be simply the business opportunity? Like, tell us about the underwriting of those loans.
Yeah, and again, we have partners that handle this for us. You're
not an SBA lender.
I'm not an SBA lender. However, oftentimes I'd say more than half of my clients are real estate investors as well. It just really complements each other and helps diversify as well. However, from a real estate standpoint, you typically need to show success in paying back a loan in the past in order to qualify for an SBA. That is one of their check marks, sure. But you don't necessarily have to be owning real estate at the time.
Yeah. Well, no, but I'm not talking about real estate. I'm talking about financing the business itself. So, it's better if there's no real estate involved because you can get a better real estate loan than an SBA loan. Okay. So just on financing the business, give us an example of a business you might recommend, a franchise, and how much financing you can get against it. And let's look at how that works. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I had a client recently, the most recent SBA deal that I did, in which his interest rate, I think, was 5.75%. All in investment on the business was $250,000. It was roll-off dumpsters and somewhat heavy on the capital side. He was able to exercise 179 rule around depreciating that. But 250, he put in, I believe it was 20%. So he put in 50,000 cash and then was able to finance the other 200,000. And this gentleman owns multiple businesses. He cash flows well. He could have bought it outright, but he said, I'd rather leverage up as a strategy.
Okay, so he's got $200,000 in loans on that business, and the business is paying the loan for you, similar to the way a renter would pay, your tenant would pay your loan on your real estate. How difficult or easy, hopefully, is it to run some of these franchises? Let's talk about some specific franchise opportunities that people can buy and how much involvement they need to have.
Yeah, no, there are two models. One would be called the owner-operator model. The other would be semi-absentee. Most franchises allow for both management styles. However, some say we do only want owner-operators. Most of my clients are of the mindset, hey, I don't want to trade time for money. I want to bring in a general manager, whether it's day one or whether it's overtime to run the business. Some recent examples of deals that we've done. I had a client that just bought 10 locations of an oil change business. They're prefabricated buildings using unused parking spaces in a retailer shopping center. They're not going to run those businesses any day of the year from an actual management standpoint. They're going to have
we have some clients that own oil change businesses. So yeah,
exactly. And now I've got a client,
real estate investors. Yeah,
I've got a client that's purchasing a gutter franchise today with just incredible numbers on it. Well, he's outside of Boston. He's a former Wall Street attorney, recovering attorney, as he would say, and he's going to run that business full time. So total career change for him, late 40s, and he couldn't be more excited. And he's never wanted to run a gutter business, but it was the financial opportunity and the return on investment that really attracted him to it. And then once he jumped in, then he really got excited.
So those are two examples.
Yeah.
Any more, or take us through the way these deals look and what kind of income they're expected to produce and so forth, how much they cost to get started, whatever, the whole thing.
Absolutely know the financials behind it. And so right now, I've shared with some folks recently, non-sexy is kind of the new sexy. People are loving those essential services, those understandable businesses. They're somewhat Amazon resistant or tech resistant, and in some cases, COVID resistant. So think of like the Serve Pros of the world, or, I mentioned the dumpster business. People are gravitating towards some of those less sexy areas. but we're still doing placements in areas like fitness. Not doing as many fitness deals as we used to do, but we have a couple next week that's purchasing from us a fitness center that caters to the senior population, those 50 and above that don't like the big box gym. And it's all about technology and how they run that business. The economics on these businesses, I'd say most of the deals that we do are between 150 and 250. And so it's not a massive investment like you would, be placing in a food franchise, let's say. And oftentimes the returns we're seeing on these in year one is income between 400 and 600,000 gross income, translating down to net profit of typically 20, 25%. In some cases, it's even higher than that. So from an ROI standpoint on your initial investment, it's a really attractive return. Now, in most cases, it's not set and forget. Even if you're semi-absentee, you're probably still putting in 10 to 15% or 10 to 15 hours a week, supporting that general manager and getting the business off the ground. But something that we see right now is more and more our clients are purchasing multiple franchises, whether it's out of the gate or it's over time. Good case study. One of my clients is the largest franchisee of 2 Men in a Truck moving service, operates in about 9 or 10 markets. Guy's only 40 years old. He's done very well running a $30 million business. Well, he and I did a couple of deals together last year. One was on a driveway business and then another driveway paving business. The other was on a trash smashing business, which I'm happy to chat about. In both cases, he's already come back and bought additional locations based on the success of the first ones. So these are businesses that really don't complement each other. They diversify. And what he does is he puts a young guy in charge of each one and says, hey, go make it happen. And he's had a great success rate. Of course, it comes down to having that right person.
Which is a lot harder than it might appear, right?
I'm a multiple brand franchisee myself. So no, I speak from experience in saying you may have to cycle through a couple of general managers till you find the right one. As a business owner right now, getting back to the current economy, there's a lot of demand out there across a lot of sectors. And labor is that area that people are having to tune into. And essentially, if you're a business owner, you're always playing whack-a-mole. Right now, that labor side is the mole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people are demanding very high pay and it's very competitive. The government has incentivized people not to work. So you got to compete with the government now, too. What are some of the most or the least demanding franchises where you need the fewest number of employees? It's maybe hard for the employees to rip you off. It's hard for competitors, to rip you off. Just talk to us about some of these recommendations on these sort of ideal franchises.
Yeah, no, and most of my clients say, hey, what delivers the highest ROI with the fewest number of people? And I don't know if that's ever not been the case, but I'd say especially in this day and age. I had a client last week in Indianapolis purchase a business coaching franchise. It's started by Brian Tracy, a few others, and gives you all the tools and assessments and stuff that you need to get out of the gate. And so for him, he's a solopreneur in that business. I've got a client right now in Birmingham that is
okay. So wait, before you go on,
yeah.
How much does that cost, that franchise, to buy it?
All in an investment, including working capital, $70,000.
Okay, so you got to pay the franchisor $70,000, and then you've got all your other expenses beyond that, which would include what? Advertising, marketing, but you've got to hire coaches, right?
So in his case, he's paying $60,000 to the franchisor and then $10,000 in working capital and some initial marketing costs within that number. So he will be the coach.
I mean, that's a pretty high franchise fee, right? $60,000?
I'd say on average, we see between 40 and 60 as being the average.
Okay.
And over time, you should be able to sell a business, down the road. Another good example of a kind of solopreneur type business. I've got a client in Birmingham right now that's purchasing a business in which it's a cost reduction type business. They go into a small or medium-sized company, evaluate all the invoices. They've got the leverage buying power. Yeah. And he'll run that himself with no employees. Well, one of those locations recently sold for $1.7 million. Mm-hmm. That's not the norm.
On what revenue? What was the revenue on that deal?
Well, because he's creating recurring revenue streams where you realize a portion of the savings for 3 years. I don't know what the revenue was on that specific one.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just wondering what kind of multiples they're getting on their revenue, So, okay. So the coaching business, the debt reduction business, I have a friend that bought one of those, by the way. It might be the exact same franchise you're talking about. Yeah. These are solopreneur type businesses, but they all mean that you are doing the work. as the owner. So you're definitely an owner-operator. These have very low barrier to entry, and the franchisor can probably sell a ton of them, and you have no territories. I mean, franchisors don't really offer territories much anymore, do they? That sort of seems like it's gone mostly.
They still do from a marketing standpoint. So typically you're allowed to market within your territory. However, if you have a referral or pick up business elsewhere, you can still service that. You just can't market in someone else's territory.
Okay. In the virtual world, that seems pretty hard to even define a territory anymore, but it is what it is. How about some others, these non-sexy franchises you talked about? Do those all require a lot of manpower? I mean, a dumpster business. I mean, they're high capital things, which is good and bad, right? Because on one hand, it keeps competitors out because there's a higher bar, right? But it's also more risky, isn't it?
Yeah. I think people spend on four things. They spend on their health, they spend on their homes, they spend on their kids, and they spend on their pets. And so a lot of businesses that kind of revolve around those industries are really attractive to people right now. And, I'd say that is one of the big things that we look at is how many average employees do you need to get to a certain revenue level? A lot of people right now are saying, hey, I'd rather not have a brick and mortar type business. Instead, I'd rather be able to work remote and not have that lease. Others say, hey, I love the idea of having a lease in the sense that, it's more of a stationary, you get the branding, people come to you, maybe a little less transactional. And in those cases, there are a number of physical location franchises where you're operating with 2 or 3 employees. And so it doesn't necessarily, I mentioned the oil change, that's an average of 2 people. I mentioned the fitness center, that's an average of 2 people. And so people like those types of businesses, whereas something, within senior care, if there's an interest there in catching that silver tsunami wave, one way to play that would be, to go in and do the bathroom retrofitting and the stair lift and chair lift and, building the wheelchair ramp. That requires fewer employees than if you were managing an in-home senior care nursing type practice. And so there are different ways to play these different industries, but definitely the ones with less labor are more attractive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What else do you want people to know? Just any questions I haven't asked?
Franchising isn't right for everyone. I work with some entrepreneurs. I have to explain you're too entrepreneurial, for this. However, for many people, it is a great fit because you're essentially starting on third base instead of first base. You've got that franchisor who acts like a coach, whose interests, for the most part, are aligned with yours. Other franchisees within the system that may be testing marketing vehicles in their locations that you're able to share best practices. Obviously, having the item 19 of the FDD, you get some eyes wide open view going in. You're able to talk to other owners before you buy. So when you're looking at franchising versus a normal startup, you are able to go in with a little more information. Therefore, the success rate is higher. Obviously, with 4,000 franchise brands in the U.S., they're not all created equal. We partner with several hundred of them that we vetted and feel very strongly about. But you really need to have that expertise going in to evaluate, the criteria between A and B.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Give out your website.
Yeah. Would love to chat with anyone. You can visit us at franbridgeconsulting.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and would love to have, 10 or 15 minute call and share with you a little bit more about what we're seeing out there.
Good stuff. Jon, thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.